Well, another heartbreaker at home for the Tigers this afternoon against Florida. What went wrong in those last couple minutes? Plus, a former Tiger recruit is now heading to Wyoming on the football field. So all this and more coming up right now on Locked On Mizzou.
You are Locked On Mizzou, your daily podcast on the Missouri Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, all you true sons and daughters, I'm John Miller, your Mizzou mafioso and the central scrutinizer of Missouri Tigers football and basketball, and thanks for making Locked On Mizzou your first listen, and thanks for telling a friend that we are free and available on all platforms, including those of you watching on YouTube. So, the Tigers, once again, take a pretty brutal loss, let's be honest. Good thing this team is not exactly bound for the NCAA tournament, or I'd be a little heartbroken right now because you could really see this team easily sitting at 5-3 instead of 2-6. Realistically, you've got 3 losses now at home that you lost by 1 possession. The last 2, Auburn, obviously today against Florida by 1 point, but let's not forget that Missouri could have easily beaten Texas A&M at home as well, and really, by all accounts, probably should have won that game too. Just a 3-point loss against the Aggies. Brutal. So what exactly went wrong there? Well, first of all, Missouri, those last, what more could have went wrong in that last minute? Well, a few things went right. First of all, probably as good a possession as Missouri ran offensively all game, just good ball sharing, an attempt at a steal by the Gators went awry, and Missouri, Kobe Brown in particular, took advantage of it. A great pass to Ronnie DeGray, who played a nice game today. Missouri took a 65-62 lead with 36 seconds left, but that lead would only last about 1.5 seconds because inexplicably Deshawn Gordon fouled the Gator ball handler about 85 feet from the basket. Obviously, he's not a big threat to score from there, so a terrible foul there by Deshawn, especially it put the Gators to the line for 2, just a parade to the foul line at the end of the game by Florida. Yeah, Florida, in fact, only had 2 field goals in the game's final 7 minutes, but yeah, again, the parade, the never-ending parade to the free throw line. Appleby for Florida, 10 of 10 from the free throw line. Give the guy credit for knocking him down there, but yeah, he had 4 free throws, I believe, in the last about 35 seconds that were the difference in the basketball game. Obviously, Missouri never scored again, but you just can't foul in that situation. You know, we can say that the fouls were questionable for sure, but I don't even know why you're getting close to the guy that far from the basket. And then, of course, Florida's last possession, Gordon commits the foul on Appleby once again. Now, if you want to say that's a questionable foul, well, I would completely agree with you. Go back and watch that play. Appleby dribbles with his left hand, but with his offhand, his right arm, he basically reaches out and grabs onto Deshawn Gordon. So I'm not really sure what Gordon's supposed to do in that situation. Not a lot of contact by Gordon regardless. But still, I hate to say it, Deshawn, I didn't really need you up as far as he was. Again, very far from the 3-point line. Gordon is picking him up and swapping at the basketball. Again, risking a foul, by the way. We don't want a foul in that situation. And he allows Appleby to get the first step on him. But again, that should be an offensive foul, if anything. I'll agree with anybody who says that. But again, to me, you can't be that aggressive defensively in that situation, especially when the referees are obviously calling it pretty close, especially when you're the defender on the ball handler. Just didn't like that whatsoever. Now, I will give Konzo Martin some credit. Not the absolute last play where there was 2 seconds left after Amari Davis got his shot blocked out of bounds, but before that, the setup with, I believe, 7.8 seconds left. The ball's inbounded to Davis. He's on the move to his strong hand, his left hand down the sidelines. And on the other side of the court, I'm sure a lot of you noticed this, especially if you were at the game. Kobe Brown sets a really nice back screen on Trevin Brazil's man, and Brazil gets absolutely wide open. Now, if you're Davis, you've got to know, you've got to have your head up, and you've got to see that. He's wide open. If you time that pass perfectly, that's an easy dunk and a Missouri lead and probable victory at that point. But then once again, Davis continues to drive the ball after missing Brazil. Well, frankly, he should have hit him for a second time, because when he went up in the air, Brazil's man just completely abandons Davis, or it completely abandons Brazil, I should say, goes for the shot block on Davis, gets it, but all Davis really had to do there was just dump it down to Brazil. So I don't know, tough moment there for Amari Davis. I just felt like his court vision was really lacking in that particular moment. Too bad, that's for sure, because again, it feels like this Missouri team is certainly getting better, but man, they're having a tough time pulling out close victories. It's just too bad, because this team could easily be 4-4 in the conference. You just win 2 of those 3 close games at home, and hey, you're thinking all of a sudden you're not as depressed as maybe a lot of Missouri fans are right now at 2-6, and you're 8-13 overall. That not exactly a lot to write home about this season, let's be honest. By the way, speaking of that Auburn game, the previous game where Missouri chose to not foul with 35 seconds left and let the game essentially expire, well, Florida had basically the exact same situation. They were down by 1 in that spot, and to me, they played it perfectly. They ended up fouling with 22 seconds left on the game clock, gave themselves enough time to try to trap, get Missouri to panic, make a turnover, do something stupid, while at the same time, they didn't get that, so they still managed to foul with 22 seconds and give themselves plenty of time to actually get the final possession. Well, that was obviously well done. It ended up working out for them, just like not fouling didn't work out at all for the Tigers. So anybody who is questioning my questioning of Konzo Martin at the end of the game, I'd like to think we can put that one to bed. Well, anytime you can get the best player in the state of Nebraska or a 4-star offensive lineman, that's a good day if you're a Tiger fan. Unfortunately, Deshawn Woods is not going to be joining Missouri this season or any other, it doesn't appear. Let's talk about that coming forward. But first, let's talk about Built Bar. It's the new year, so that means, guess what? New Year's resolutions. And a lot of people's is about staying fit. And if yours is about staying fit, well, and getting healthy, eating healthier, well, be sure to include a Built Bar in your plan, because you know what? Eating healthy gets a little bit boring every once in a while. You need the occasional treat. Well, treat yourself with a Built Bar. And unlike a lot of protein bars, these babies are covered in 100% real chocolate, not the sort of nonsense that you get from regular protein bars. This is real quality stuff here. 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. Compare that to your corporate candy bars. Nah, there is no comparison. Just take my word for it. So go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Once again, promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Well, another National Signing Day is come and gone, and when I think about this early period in February, I definitely remember the Dorial Green Beckham signing, right? What a huge deal that was at the time to get what was considered the number 1 player in all of high school football. But boy, the days of that being a big deal seemingly are over. It seems like most of your high school players, like big-time guys like Luther Burden, for instance, are now signing, in the December period, certainly a couple months before now. And even more of an interesting sign of the times, I guess, Missouri only signed a couple high school players, but announced the acquisition of 10 transfer players. So again, a huge sign of the times there. It's almost just as important these days to recruit the current players in college football as it is to recruit high school guys. Forever and ever, of course, that's the lifeblood of every program, every great program. You have to be good at recruiting high school players, period. Well, I think that's still the case, but it's becoming at least less the case, right? That's pretty interesting. So At least for now, anyway, by the way. Deshawn Woods, yes, the four-star offensive lineman from Nebraska, now going to Wyoming because apparently, for whatever reason, he couldn't academically qualify at Missouri. Now, why he's able to go to Wyoming, which is at the same level of college football as Missouri, and not go to Mizzou, well, somebody's going to have to explain that to me. I don't quite understand that one, I have to admit. By the way, somebody on YouTube asked me to take a quick look at the 2022 football schedule and pick an upset. Well, that's a tough question, I'll be honest with you, but I'll attempt to answer it. What the heck? I'm not going to shrink from the moment. I guess what would be considered an upset would beating Kansas State in week 2 in Manhattan, would that be considered an upset? I'm not sure who exactly would be favored in that ball game at this moment in time. Certainly week 1 will have a lot to do with that, right? But how about week 4 at Auburn? If Missouri can get off to, let's say they get off to a 3-0 start, they beat Louisiana Tech, they take down the purple kitties of Manhattan, Kansas, and I think it's pretty safe to assume we'll beat Abilene Christian at home. But what about at Auburn? Now, Auburn is a team last season that really had a wide range of outcomes. Obviously, they almost knocked off Alabama at the end of the season in the Iron Bowl, but then there were also a lot of shaky moments for Auburn as well. Let's be perfectly frank. Are they world beaters? Are they the type of team that scares you to death? I could see Missouri beating Auburn. And if they did, if Missouri somehow got off to a 4-0 start before hosting the national champions, Georgia, at home, well, that would certainly probably be your first sellout at Faurot Field in a long time. I would sure hope so anyway. So, hey, that's something to get excited about moving forward here into 2022, potentially. All right, folks, I have a very, very embarrassing confession to make. I watched an episode of The Bachelor this past Monday, but wait, hold on before you turn me off immediately. The only reason I watched it because a former Missouri football player is in fact the Bachelor this season. So if you weren't aware, we got to talk some Bachelor here after the break. But first, I got to tell you about Bet Online, where I bet you can actually bet on The Bachelor, by the way, over at Bet Online. That's how great these people are over at betonline.net. They not only have you covered with football, basketball, of course, UFC action, even your favorite Vegas casino games, but they have entertainment props as well. I bet you can bet on which young lady old Clayton Echard will pick on The Bachelor this season. What a world we live in. What a beautiful, beautiful world. But once again, get all your gambling needs over at betonline.net, the official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network and Locked On Mizzou. Now, in the past, I've probably seen a second or two of The Bachelor at some point in my life, but I had never actually sat down and watched an entire episode until Monday. And you know what? I should have known better. I really should have, because my wife watches every single version of Below Deck and The Real Housewives and all that Andy Cohen nonsense. But somehow, even though Clayton Echard, former Missouri tight end, by the way, even though he is actually her coworker, at least former coworker at one point, well, even she was going, no, I'm not watching The Bachelor. I should have known at that point. And you know what, Melissa, you are 100% correct. That is probably the stupidest show I've ever seen on television. And somehow it's been on the air for over a decade now. And yet somehow these women, these people who come on this program seem to actually buy into the stuff. At least many of the actual contestants seem to buy into the fact that, oh, I'm actually having a real relationship with this person. But how can you simultaneously date a million people at the same time, and then you as a woman aren't supposed to get your feelings hurt, and yet you're actually buying into all this? Listen, if you just want to go on TV and become an actress, basically, and you're just using it for that, well, God love you. But the people who actually seem to believe this stuff, maybe they are really good actors. Maybe I'm the one who's being fooled at this point. But wow, what an incredibly stupid show. But Clayton, hey, There's some good looking ones on there. I'll give you that, buddy. So God love you. All I know is if you don't remember Clayton Echard from his time at Missouri, well, I can't say I totally blame you. I didn't have a lot of fond memories of his time at Missouri either. That's probably because he was a tight end that in his career caught 2 passes for 14 yards. And that's not to make fun of, that's not me being snide or anything like that. If I could have put on a Missouri uniform and gotten 2 catches for 14 yards, I'd still be bragging about it. But you know what? Based on what I saw from The Bachelor this past Monday, it seems like Clayton is going to be putting up some stats this season, if you know what I'm saying. So, you know what? Hopefully you've had some fun on this show with me today, because that Missouri basketball game wasn't exactly the most fun ending I've ever seen in my life. But hey, you know what? We plowed through today on this snow day. You see what I did there? But hey, thanks again for making me your first listen. Why don't you make your second listen Locked On Chiefs, Locked On Royals, Locked On Blues, or Locked On Cardinals? We've got you all covered here in the state of Missouri. So until next time, I am John Miller, and this has been Locked On Mizzou.